One month after renovating my first apartment, I got home and my key didn't work. Mom said casually, "We let Victoria move in. She needed it more." Victoria's my sister, who said I'd never afford anything. I didn't argue, just walked into the police station with my lease in hand. Sup, Reddit. My sister stole my apartment with my mom's help, so I destroyed her life legally and systematically. What followed was the most satisfying revenge I've ever witnessed. Buckle up because this gets wild. It was the first Monday in May when everything changed. I remember the exact date because I'd just finished wiping dust off the last windowsill in my apartment, set down the rag, and finally allowed myself to breathe properly for the first time in months. My name's Tyler, I'm 26, and for the first time in my entire life, I had something that was actually, genuinely, completely mine. Not rented with three broke roommates who never bought dish soap and left dirty dishes in the sink for weeks. Not crashing on my cousin's uncomfortable futon while pretending I had my life together. This was my apartment, my name on the lease, my blood, sweat, and countless late-night YouTube tutorials evident in the fresh white paint on those walls and the newly installed fixtures throughout. I wasn't trying to be fancy or impressive, didn't need granite countertops or a walk-in closet, just wanted something clean, functional, and mine. A space where I could close the door and know that everything inside belonged to me and only me. Is that too much to ask for at 26? Apparently, yes. I'd spent the last 4 months pulling double shifts at the logistics warehouse where I worked, picking up every available weekend shift, skipping meals to save money, and basically becoming a complete ghost to my social life just to scrape together enough for the security deposit and first month's rent on this one-bedroom place a few miles outside the city. My friends stopped inviting me places because I always said no. Couldn't afford to go out when every dollar was earmarked for my apartment fund. The apartment itself was small, maybe 650 square feet total, older construction from the 1980s, and definitely needed work when I first saw it. The previous tenant had apparently been there for 15 years and hadn't updated anything. Beige walls that had yellowed with age, carpet that was more stained than fabric, kitchen cabinets that hung slightly crooked, and a bathroom that looked like something from a budget motel. But it was quiet, in a decent neighborhood, and it belonged to me. The landlord, Mr. Patterson, was this retired guy in his 60s who owned a few rental properties. He'd actually given me a chance when other landlords took one look at my income and laughed me out of their offices. Said he appreciated that I was honest about my situation and willing to put in work to make the place nice. You don't forget the first time you put your hand on your own doorknob, turn the key, and know there's nobody on the other side but you. No roommate's mess to clean up. No one eating your food or using your stuff without asking. No one judging your life choices or making you feel like you're failing. That feeling of walking into space that's entirely yours can't be bought, can only be earned through sacrifice and determination. But let me back up because you absolutely need to understand the family dynamic first. Otherwise, what happened next won't make sense. I grew up in a house where the loudest person got their way. Period. No discussion, no democracy. Just whoever could yell and manipulate the most effectively. Dad wasn't in the picture. He left when I was in 7th grade and barely looked back. I remember coming home from school one day to find half the furniture gone, and Mom crying at the kitchen table. Dad had packed his stuff, taken his favorite chair, and left a note saying he needed to find himself. Sent birthday cards with $20 inside for the first couple years. Then even those stopped. Last I heard, he was living in Arizona with a woman he met online. So it was just me, my older sister Victoria, and our mom Sharon, who somehow decided that Victoria was the second coming of perfection, despite absolutely all evidence pointing to the contrary. The favoritism started early. I'm talking elementary school level. Victoria would throw screaming tantrums in the grocery store, the kind where she'd lay on the floor and kick her legs while other shoppers stared, and Mom would eventually give in and buy whatever toy or snack Victoria wanted. Then she'd look at me and say, "Be good like your sister, and maybe you'll get something too." Yeah, the kid having a meltdown was the good one. That's the logic I grew up with. When Victoria was in high school, she got caught skipping class repeatedly. Mom's response? The teachers just don't understand her learning style. When I got a single detention for being late to class because the bus broke down, I was grounded for 2 weeks. Same household. Completely different rule books depending on which kid you were. Victoria was 5 years older than me and had the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. Never had to face real consequences, never had to take responsibility, never had to acknowledge that maybe her actions had caused her problems. I used to think she was cool when I was a little kid. She wore makeup, always smelled like vanilla perfume, and blasted music in her car like she was starring in some music video. Back then, around age 8 or 9, I genuinely wanted to be just like her. But once I hit high school, something shifted dramatically. She started talking to me like I was her personal servant instead of her brother. Tyler, grab me a soda from the fridge. Tyler, do the dishes or I'll tell mom you scratched her car. Tyler, stop being such a weirdo and give me a ride to Jessica's house. That kind of thing. Constantly. If I said no, she'd throw a fit, and mom would force me to comply because it's easier if you just help her out. When I complained to mom about the unfair treatment, same response every single time. Just let her be, Tyler. She's under a lot of pressure. That became her catchphrase. Victoria, under pressure. Meanwhile, I was working part-time at a grocery store, maintaining a 3.5 GPA, and somehow that warranted zero sympathy or acknowledgement. I never figured out what the magical pressure was exactly. Victoria dropped out of college halfway through her first semester, said the professors had it out for her, and the coursework was designed to make students fail. Never mind that thousands of other students were passing just fine. She then spent the next few years bouncing between temp jobs that each lasted maybe 3 months maximum. Retail associate, receptionist, administrative assistant, always some excuse for why she got let go or why she quit. The managers were mean, the hours were bad, the pay wasn't enough, the other employees were cliquish. Then she married this guy Blake, who wore sunglasses indoors even during the evening, thought sarcasm was a complete personality substitute, and worked some vague job in sales that never seemed to result in any actual money. Real winner. The wedding was small, but mom insisted on throwing an engagement party that cost probably $3,000. When I graduated college 2 years later, I got a card with $50 inside and a text saying, "Proud of you." Blake and Victoria moved into a rental house about 20 minutes away from mom's place. I thought maybe with her own space and a husband, she'd finally grow up and become an actual adult. Wrong. The calls to mom became more frequent. They couldn't make rent. Could mom help? The car broke down. Could mom pay for repairs? Blake lost a job. Could they borrow some money just until he found something else? And mom always said yes. Meanwhile, I was the one who actually stayed quiet and worked hard. Did well in school despite getting zero help or encouragement at home. Got into a decent community college on my own, researched financial aid options myself, and took night classes while working full-time at a logistics warehouse across town. The job wasn't glamorous whatsoever. Started unloading trucks in the dead of summer, when it was 95 degrees outside, and the metal containers felt like ovens you could barely breathe in. My first day, I thought I might pass out from heat exhaustion. The warehouse manager, this gruff guy named Phil, saw me struggling and just said, "Either you can handle it or you can't. Nobody's gonna hold your hand." So I handled it. Drank a gallon of water, pushed through, and came back the next day. And the day after that. But the work paid decent money for someone my age with no degree yet. And over time, we're talking years of consistent effort here, I moved up from unloading trucks to inventory management specialist to assistant supervisor to team lead. Nobody gave me anything. Didn't have family connections or favors to call in. I clawed for every promotion, every dollar raise, every inch of progress. Had to prove myself over and over again, especially since I was younger than most of the other workers. I was used to hearing no and turning it into, "Watch me prove you wrong." When my supervisor said team lead positions usually went to people with more experience, I worked twice as hard and learned every single system inside and out until I became indispensable. When HR said they didn't usually promote people under 25, I documented every success and improvement I'd made until they couldn't deny the numbers. That's probably exactly why Victoria hated it so much when I bought the apartment. I wasn't loud or obnoxious about it, didn't throw a housewarming party, didn't post pictures all over social media with hashtags about adulting or whatever. But I did bring it up casually over dinner at Mom's house one Sunday afternoon, which was probably a mistake in retrospect. Mom was microwaving something that smelled vaguely like lasagna, while Victoria scrolled through her phone with this permanent scowl on her face, and I mentioned as casually as possible, "So hey, I'm signing the final papers on my apartment this Friday. Finally got approved for everything." Victoria didn't even bother looking up from her screen. "Didn't think you could afford anything on warehouse wages? What did you do, rob a bank?" She laughed at her own joke while Mom shot her a quick look. I didn't reply to the jab, just smiled and took a sip of water. Mom, to her limited credit, said, "That's wonderful, Tyler. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart." But her eyes immediately flicked toward Victoria, like she was worried about how my sister would react to the news. Like my accomplishment was somehow an attack on Victoria's fragile ego. Victoria let out this half-laugh, half-snort sound, that she does when she's being passive-aggressive. Well, I hope you like plumbing problems and loud neighbors and roaches. You know how those starter places are. Blake and I looked at places like that before we found our house. Just couldn't lower our standards that much. Never mind that Blake and Victoria's house was a rental they could barely afford and were constantly behind on payments for. Never mind that I'd looked at the same property and seen the foundation cracks and water damage they were apparently ignoring. In Victoria's mind, anything good happening to someone else, especially me, was a personal attack on her existence. That was Victoria's way with everything. Other people's success diminished hers somehow. Other people's happiness was suspicious. Other people's achievements needed to be minimized or mocked. And when things got progressively worse with Blake, when the fights became louder and more frequent, when the financial problems became impossible to hide, when it became obvious their marriage was circling the drain, Victoria's bitterness grew actual teeth. The final straw came about 6 months after I'd mentioned my apartment. I was already living there by then, had started the renovation process. Blake apparently decided he'd had enough of Victoria's behavior and lack of contribution. Just packed his stuff one day while she was out, left a note on the kitchen counter, and moved back in with his parents in another state. Victoria came home to an empty house and a text message saying, "This isn't working. Don't contact me. My lawyer will reach out about the divorce." She moved back in with Mom within a week, supposedly for just a few weeks, while she figured things out. Everyone with half a brain knew those few weeks would turn into months, maybe years. She took over Mom's living room completely, spread her belongings across every available surface like she was marking territory, and started making these pointed comments about how some people didn't understand how hard life could get for those who'd faced real struggles. The implication being that my life had been easy, that working full-time while going to school and saving every penny had been some kind of cakewalk, that watching my family favor my sister for 26 years had been no big deal. Right. But I stayed completely out of their drama, kept my distance, kept my focus on my own situation. I had my own place to concentrate on, my own life to build, spent weekends watching endless YouTube tutorials about home renovation, then actually implementing what I learned. Sanding floors until my arms ached and dust covered every inch of me. Painting cabinets with 3 careful coats, primer, base, top coat, because I wanted them to actually last. Installing new light fixtures that didn't flicker ominously like props from a horror movie. Replacing outlet covers, patching holes in walls, caulking around the bathtub and sink. The bathroom was probably my biggest project. The tile was this awful pink color from the 1980s that had to go. I watched probably 40 hours of tutorial videos about proper tile removal and installation before I even started. Bought all the right tools. Tile cutter, spacers, grout float, everything. Spent an entire weekend just removing the old tile without damaging the wall underneath. Then another weekend laying the new tile, letting it set, applying grout. It was exhausting, but incredibly satisfying to see the transformation. The floors were another major undertaking. The carpet was beyond saving. Stained, worn, smelled vaguely of must and old pets. Mr. Patterson had warned me about it when I first toured the place. Under that carpet was hardwood that hadn't been touched in probably 20 years. I rented a floor sander, bought safety equipment, and spent 2 full days sanding down decades of neglect. The dust was unbelievable. Had to cover everything, wear a respirator mask, and still ended up coughing up dust for a week afterward. But seeing those floors transform from dull, scratched wood to smooth, clean surface ready for staining, that made every aching muscle worth it. I applied 3 coats of polyurethane, letting each one dry completely before adding the next. The final result looked professional, probably better than what I would have gotten if I'd hired someone, and certainly way more affordable. Learned so much during those 4 months. How to patch drywall properly so it doesn't show. How to paint straight lines without tape. How to install a ceiling fan without electrocuting yourself. How to fix a leaky faucet, unclog a drain, replace a toilet flapper. Practical skills nobody had ever taught me growing up. Just me, YouTube, hardware store employees who took pity on my confused questions, and determination. By the end of April, I was completely done with the renovation. It looked perfect to me. Maybe not perfect by HGTV standards or anything, but by my standards, absolutely perfect. Clean white walls, functioning fixtures, floors you could actually walk on barefoot, a bathroom that didn't make you feel gross, a space I'd transformed entirely through my own effort and money. And then came that Monday in May that changed everything. It was one of those weirdly hot days where spring decided to skip ahead to summer. Temperature hit 88 degrees by noon, humidity was oppressive, and the warehouse was brutal. We'd had a huge shipment come in that morning. 3 trucks worth of inventory that all needed to be unloaded, sorted, and logged by end of day. I'd just finished an 11-hour shift. My shirt was completely soaked and stuck to my back, and all I could think about was getting home to my beautiful renovated apartment, taking a long, cold shower, and sitting on my tiny balcony with some iced tea while reading the book I'd been trying to finish for 2 weeks. Simple pleasures, right? That's all I wanted. Just peace, quiet, and my own space after a long day of physical labor. I walked up to my apartment door around 6:30 p.m., fishing my keys out of my pocket. Everything looked normal from the outside. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows, nothing suspicious. I stuck my key in the lock and turned it. It didn't move. I blinked hard, thinking maybe I was just exhausted and doing it wrong. Tried again, jiggling the key a bit. Maybe the lock was being temperamental? These older buildings sometimes had finicky locks that needed specific angles or pressure. Checked the key to make absolutely sure it was the right one. Definitely my apartment key, the one I'd had made when I moved in. Same keychain I'd been using for months. Turned it again with more force. Nothing. The lock wouldn't budge even slightly. My heart started doing this weird tap dance against my ribs. A strange feeling of dread settled in my stomach. Maybe the lock was completely jammed? Maybe someone had tried to break in and damaged it? Maybe Mr. Patterson had needed to change it for some emergency and forgot to tell me. My brain was running through every possible explanation that wasn't the truth. I jiggled the key harder, then actually pressed my ear against the door like some kind of amateur detective, trying to hear if anything inside sounded wrong or different. That's when I heard it crystal clear. A voice. A woman's voice. Familiar. Laughing at something. I froze completely, every muscle in my body going rigid. Then I knocked loudly. The laughter stopped abruptly. A few seconds of total silence passed, then footsteps approaching the door from inside my apartment. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The door opened just a crack, maybe 4 or 5 inches, with the security chain still attached. And standing there in one of my t-shirts, my shirt that I'd bought at a concert 2 years ago, was Victoria. She looked like she'd just woken up from an afternoon nap. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, mascara slightly smudged, and she was holding a bowl of cereal, my cereal, from my cabinet, with my spoon, in my apartment. "What are you doing here?" she asked with casual annoyance, like I was some door-to-door salesperson interrupting her afternoon, like I was the intruder in my own home. I just stared at her, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. "What? What are you doing here? Why doesn't my key work?" "Oh," she said slowly, completely nonchalant about the whole situation. Actually stepped back and started closing the door like this conversation was over. "Mom had the locks changed. We moved in last week. Didn't she tell you?" "We?" My voice sounded thin and distant, like it was coming from someone else. "Me and Connor." She waved vaguely toward the bedroom, with the hand holding the cereal bowl, spilling a bit of milk on my floor. "My son. You know, the one you barely make effort to see. It's been a really hard time for him with the divorce, Tyler. He needs stability right now. Victoria, this is my apartment. I have a lease. I pay rent here. This is illegal." She gave me this look, this condescending, dismissive look, like I just told her the earth was flat, and she couldn't believe how stupid I was being. "You're young. You'll bounce back easily enough. Connor needs stability and space right now. You can crash with Mom for a while until you figure something else out. It's not forever." I didn't even register half of what she was saying. My eyes were scanning the room behind her. My area rug, my coffee table, my books stacked on the shelves. It was all still there, except now with toy cars scattered across the floor, dirty bowls piled in the sink, laundry draped over the couch like decorations. I think I stopped breathing for a second. I didn't yell, didn't scream, didn't even step inside. I turned around, walked back down the stairs, got in my car, and sat in complete silence for a good 10 minutes, just gripping the steering wheel while my chest felt like it was caving in. Then I pulled out my phone and called my mom. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, sweetie. Why is Victoria in my apartment?" She sighed. "Not guilty, not panicked, just tired. Tyler, please don't make a scene. Victoria is going through a really difficult time. That doesn't explain why she's living in my apartment. She needed somewhere stable for Connor." "You're young. You can stay with me for a while. It's temporary." My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. Temporary? Mom, that's my apartment. I have a lease. I paid for everything. You can't just... We thought you'd understand. Family helps family, Tyler. Did you ask me? At all. Silence. Did Victoria ask me? More silence. Mom, that's illegal. You can't just change someone's locks and move someone else in. Don't be dramatic. Victoria has a key. You can get another one. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I hung up. Actually hung up on my own mother for the first time in my life. Then I sat there for another 5 minutes, hands shaking, trying to process what had just happened. My family had stolen my apartment. Not borrowed it, not asked to use it temporarily, stolen it, changed the locks while I was at work, and moved my sister in like I didn't exist. That's when something clicked in my brain. A switch flipped. I wasn't sad anymore. Wasn't confused. I was focused. I started the car, drove directly to the police station, and walked inside with my lease agreement in hand. The officer at the front desk looked up when I approached. Young guy, maybe early 30s, probably been dealing with nonsense all day. Help you. I need to file a report. Someone changed the locks to my apartment and moved in without permission. He raised an eyebrow. Your apartment? You own it or rent it? I rent it, but I'm the only person on the lease. I slid the document across the desk. My sister is currently living there. My mother helped her break in and change the locks. The officer picked up the lease, scanned it, then looked back at me. And you didn't give them permission? No, I came home from work today and my key didn't work. Found my sister inside wearing my clothes, eating my food. He made a note. That's trespassing. Possibly breaking and entering, depending on how they gained access. You want to press charges? Absolutely. He nodded. All right, let me get some information from you. I spent the next 40 minutes giving my statement. Address, phone number, timeline of events, description of who was in the apartment. The officer was professional, but seemed genuinely annoyed on my behalf. This happens more than you'd think, he said while typing. Family members thinking they can just move into someone's place because they're related. Doesn't work that way legally. What happens next? We'll send an officer to the address to verify the situation. If your sister can't provide proof she's authorized to be there, she'll be removed and potentially arrested for trespassing. You'll get your keys back. How long? Could be tonight, could be tomorrow morning. Depends on patrol availability. I thanked him and left. Sat in my car in the police station parking lot and called my landlord, Mr. Patterson. Tyler, everything okay? Mr. Patterson, did anyone contact you about changing the locks to my apartment? Changing the locks? No. Why? I explained the situation. The unauthorized entry, my sister living there, the changed locks. Mr. Patterson went quiet for a long moment. Tyler, that's a serious violation of your lease. And frankly, illegal. I'm going to contact my attorney. Can you send me a copy of the police report when you get it? Absolutely. Good. Don't worry about this. We'll handle it properly. That night, I stayed at a motel. Cheapest place I could find that didn't look like a crime scene. Couldn't stay with mom, obviously, and didn't want to impose on friends without explaining the whole mess. Lying in that scratchy motel bed, staring at water stains on the ceiling, I started making lists. Evidence I'd need. Steps to take. Documentation to gather. If they wanted to play games, I'd play by the rules. Every single one. The next morning, I got a call from the police. Officer Reynolds, the one who'd taken my report. Mr. Hayes, wanted to update you. We visited the property last night around 9 p.m. Your sister was initially uncooperative, but eventually admitted she'd changed the locks without your permission. She claimed she had verbal authorization from the property owner, which she doesn't have. Correct. We verified that with Mr. Patterson this morning. Your sister has been issued a formal trespass warning. She has 24 hours to vacate the premises, or she'll be arrested. And my apartment? We've arranged for a locksmith to meet you there at 2 p.m. today. Mr. Patterson is covering the cost. You'll get new keys and full access. I actually felt tears forming. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. Just doing the job. But Tyler, document everything when you get inside. Take photos, make lists of anything missing or damaged. You'll want that for any civil proceedings. Smart advice? At 2 p.m. exactly, I met the locksmith outside my apartment. Mr. Patterson was there too, looking genuinely angry. Tyler, I'm so sorry this happened. In 30 years of renting properties, I've never seen anything like this. It's not your fault, Mr. Patterson. Still, your sister and whoever helped her should be ashamed. He unlocked the door. Go ahead. I'll wait out here. I stepped inside and my stomach immediately dropped. The place was trashed. Not just messy, actually damaged. Dark stains on the carpet I'd just cleaned. Crayon marks on the freshly painted walls. The kitchen faucet was leaking because someone had apparently tried to force it and broke the handle. Cabinet doors hung crooked. The bathroom mirror had a crack running through it. I pulled out my phone and started documenting everything. Every stain, every mark, every broken fixture. Took probably 200 photos from different angles. Then I checked my belongings. My TV was gone. My laptop, gone. The nice headphones I'd saved for months to buy, gone. Even some of my clothes were missing. I made a detailed list of everything. Mr. Patterson came in after about 20 minutes and just shook his head. This is going to be expensive to fix. I'm so sorry, Tyler. Can I sue her for damages? Absolutely, and you should. I'll provide any documentation you need. Move-in condition photos, lease agreements, everything. That evening, I filed a civil suit against Victoria for property damage, theft, and harassment. The filing fee was $200 I couldn't really afford, but sometimes revenge requires investment. I also called Mom one more time. Tyler, where have you been? Victoria is very upset about the police. Good. She should be. Did you know she stole my TV and laptop? She didn't steal anything. She just borrowed. Breaking into someone's apartment and taking their property without permission is called theft, Mom. It's a crime. You're being ridiculous. This is family. Family doesn't break into families' homes. I filed a police report and a civil lawsuit. If she doesn't return everything, I'm pressing criminal charges too. Mom's voice got sharp. You'd really put your own sister in jail over this? She put herself there when she committed multiple felonies. I'm just documenting it. I hung up, blocked her number, then blocked Victoria's too. For the next few days, I focused on repairs. Mr. Patterson was incredibly understanding, even offering to help with costs. I declined. This was my fight, and I'd handle it myself. I spent evenings repainting walls, replacing the broken mirror, fixing the faucet. Every repair felt like reclaiming territory. And honestly, it was therapeutic. Each fixed thing was proof I was putting my life back together while hers fell apart. About a week later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Tyler? It's me, Victoria. She sounded desperate. How did you get this number? Listen, I'm sorry, okay? I'm really sorry. Can we talk about the lawsuit? Can you drop it? No. Tyler, please, I can't afford a lawyer. This is going to ruin me. Should have thought about that before breaking into my apartment. I was desperate. Blake left. I had nowhere to go. Connor needed... You had options. You could have asked me. Instead, you and Mom decided to commit multiple felonies and hope I just accept it. I'll pay you back for everything. The damages, the stuff I took, all of it. With what money, Victoria? You don't have a job. Silence. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. You're going to show up to court. You're going to face the consequences. And maybe you'll learn that the world doesn't revolve around you. You're really going to destroy your own sister over an apartment? You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure there's a record of it. I hung up. Felt nothing. No guilt, no sadness. Just cold determination. The court date came 3 weeks later. I showed up in business casual with a folder full of evidence. Photos, receipts, police reports, Mr. Patterson's statement, everything organized with tabs. Victoria showed up 10 minutes late with no lawyer, no prepared statement, just that same entitled expression she'd worn my whole life. The judge was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who looked like she'd heard every excuse imaginable. Ms. Hayes, what you did constitutes criminal trespassing, theft, and property damage. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $4,300 for property damage and stolen items, plus court costs. You have 90 days to begin payment. Victoria's face went white. I don't have that kind of money. Then I suggest you find employment. If you fail to comply, a warrant will be issued. Next case. Just like that, it was over. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness exactly, but the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd done everything right. By the book. No yelling, no drama, just systematic legal consequences. Victoria tried to catch up with me in the parking lot. Tyler, wait, please. I kept walking. I'm sorry. I really am. Can't we work something out? I stopped and turned around. Victoria, you spent my entire life treating me like I was less than you. You mocked my job, my apartment, everything I worked for. Then when you needed something, you didn't ask. You just took it. You broke into my home, damaged my property, stole my belongings, and expected me to just accept it because we're family. I was desperate. Everyone gets desperate sometimes. Most people don't commit felonies about it. So that's it? You're just done with me? Yeah, I am. I got in my car and drove away. Didn't look back. The next few months were honestly some of the best of my life. I threw myself into fixing up the apartment properly. Not just repairs this time, but actual improvements that made the space feel even more like mine. Upgraded the kitchen backsplash with subway tiles I installed myself, watching more YouTube tutorials, and taking my time to get every line perfectly straight. Installed better lighting throughout the entire apartment. Replaced those old fluorescent bulbs with LED fixtures that actually made the place feel warm and inviting instead of cold and institutional. Even got some decent furniture instead of the hand-me-down stuff I'd been using since college. Nothing expensive or fancy, but actual grown-up furniture that didn't look like it came from a dumpster or someone's garage sale. A real couch that didn't sag in the middle. A coffee table without water stains. A bed frame that didn't squeak every time I moved. Small things, but they mattered. Every piece I bought felt like another step away from the chaos of my family and towards something stable and permanent. Work was going incredibly well too. Got promoted to senior team lead with a nice raise, almost $4 per hour more, which doesn't sound like much but added up to significant money over time. My manager actually pulled me aside to say I'd earned it through consistent performance and leadership, which felt genuinely good to hear. Started saving again immediately, this time with a specific goal in mind, a down payment on an actual house of my own. The court-ordered payments from Victoria came sporadically and inconsistently, $50 here, $100 there, sometimes nothing for months at a time. She'd never pay off the full amount in any reasonable time frame. I knew that from the beginning. Her retail job barely covered her own expenses. But honestly, it wasn't really about the money anymore. It was about the principle. It was about her finally, for the first time in her life, facing actual consequences for her actions. Every payment she made was an acknowledgement that what she'd done was wrong, even if she'd never actually say those words out loud. Mom tried reaching out through other family members. I ignored it. Some cousins sided with her, saying I was being too harsh. Others quietly reached out to say they understood and actually admired me for standing up for myself. My Uncle Gerald, Dad's brother, who I'd always been close with, took me out for dinner one night. Heard about what happened with Victoria and your mom. Yeah, good for you, kid. That took courage. I hadn't expected that. Really? Really? Your mom's been enabling Victoria for years. Someone needed to finally give that girl some consequences. Might be the best thing that ever happened to her. I doubt she sees it that way. Probably not, but maybe someday she will. About 6 months after the court case, I started getting interesting opportunities that I hadn't expected at all. Word had apparently spread through my social circle about my renovation skills and the transformation I'd pulled off on my apartment. Friends started asking if I could help with small projects around their places. Nothing major at first, just things like fixing a leaky sink or helping paint a bedroom. Then those friends told their friends. And suddenly I was getting calls from people I'd never met asking if I did handyman work on the side. A year after the apartment incident, I was doing well enough to actually buy a small house. Nothing fancy, needed work, which was perfect since I now knew how to do most repairs myself. 2 bedrooms, decent yard, quiet neighborhood. The day I closed on it, I sat on the back porch with a glass of iced tea and just breathed. Remembered sitting in that motel room a year earlier, feeling like my world had ended. Turned out it wasn't an ending, just a really harsh beginning to something better. I never heard from Victoria directly again. Through the family grapevine, I heard she'd eventually found a job at a retail store, moved into a small apartment with Connor, and was apparently doing better. Blake had gotten custody, which probably saved that kid from a lot of chaos. Mom and I never reconciled. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. And honestly, I was okay with that. I'd spent too many years trying to earn approval from people who would never give it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.